So, medieval music was written around 500 to 1500 AD. That was quite a while ago. Okay, one main thing the medieval time period was known for is its Gregorian chants. You're going to be writing a Gregorian chant in the halfway through. Listen, Gregorian chants were religious songs consisting of one main melody that was usually sung. The solemn and meditative song would be sung in Latin for religious events. It would also be played or sung to entertain kings and queens in their castle. So that's one main thing that they would do during the medieval period for music. There were many instruments in the medieval time period that may be unusual to us today. So the paper I gave you has all of the instruments listed, and I have questions. You don't have to do it if you don't want, but if you'd like to, you can just answer the questions I have for each of the instruments. They're very unique instruments. We'll get to listen to them. We'll get to see what they look like. So I think you'll enjoy it. Let's try to be quiet for those who want to listen. All right. So we are going to listen first to the hurdy-gurdy. The hurdy-gurdy was a stringed instrument that produced sound by turning a crank, which rotated a wheel that had a bow on the strings. It's often described as a combination of a violin and a mechanical organ. It was popular in Europe during the medieval period and is still played by some today. So please be quiet as we listen to the hurdy-gurdy. You can answer the questions about it. Okay, so that is the hurdy-gurdy. So I have two questions. What is unique about the hurdy-gurdy? So you can just, well, it's not necessarily like a one answer fits it. It's what you think is unique about it and what maybe it reminds you of something. Maybe it reminds you of another instrument you've heard before. You just can write down what it reminds you of. Okay, our next instrument is the bagpipes. Most of you are probably familiar with this one. They've just changed a little bit from back then. Yep. Yeah, you saw one? Nice. So bagpipes were used in medieval Europe, particularly in Celtic regions. They consisted of a bag, usually made of animal skin or leather, and one or more pipes with reeds. So you can kind of see, we're going to watch them in a minute, but you can see what it would look like. The musician would blow air into the bag, which then produces a continuous sound as the air escapes and is controlled by finger holes on the pipes. So we're going to listen to him. Okay, so our questions for that one is, what is unique about the bagpipes? So kind of similar to the other one, what do you think is unique about it? Maybe it's that it's made of animal skin or something else you noticed about it. And have you ever seen one played in person? Raise your hand if you've seen one played in person. Okay, so a few of you. No? Okay. Well, maybe one day you will. Okay, this next one is a very unique instrument. It's called the shawm. It's a woodwind instrument similar to the modern oboe. Shh. It has a double reed and a flared bell. So you can see it's got a big opening at the end. They were popular in medieval Europe, so a lot of these instruments were popular in Europe, as you can notice. So we're going to listen to it. So the questions for that one is, what is unique about the shawm in comparison to other woodwind instruments? So other woodwind instruments would be like different flutes, like oboes, stuff like that. So how is that different? You might think maybe because of the flared bell at the end, or maybe the sound. So it's up to you what you think. Okay, our next instrument is called the lute. This is one of my favorites from back then. It does. It's a stringed instrument with a pear-shaped body and a fretted neck. And you can notice the tuning pegs, they're like slanted away, which is a lot different than the modern guitar, a lot of them. It was a popular instrument in medieval courts and is considered an ancestor of the modern guitar. So one of you said that. Lutes had a significant influence on the development of Western classical music. So that's kind of like where we are. So we're going to listen to this. The questions for this one that you can be thinking about is, how does the lute remind you of the guitar? There maybe the sound, maybe how it looks. So we're going to listen to him play it. Okay. So how many of you really like that? Think it's yeah. Yep. I like that instrument a lot. Okay. Here. Okay. There we go. Okay, this one's called the vielle. It was an early form of the violin and is sometimes called a medieval fiddle. It had a bowed string. So this instrument, how many of you might have played violin or play violin right now? So I know Ellie plays violin. Jared, you've played violin. So, and I play violin. So this instrument, I personally like the modern violin better, but the questions we have for this one is, do you think the vielle sounds like a violin? And do you like it more or less than a violin? So you can think about that. We're going to go ahead and listen to it. So what did we think about that in comparison to the modern violin? So raise your hand if you like it more than the modern violin. Okay. Raise your hand if you like the modern violin better. Okay. Yeah, I personally like the modern violin better, but it does have, it has a very unique sound. Okay. This next one has a silly name, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's, I think, Crwth. Not exactly sure, but it's C-R-W-T-H. So it's an interesting spelling for this instrument. Okay. So the Crwth, also known as the Crowder rote, is a stringed instrument with a rectangular or trapezoidal body and a series of strings played with a bow. It kind of looks like a violin. It was commonly used in Wales and parts of Western Europe during the medieval period. So you can kind of see how he's holding it. It kind of reminds me of a violin, but the shape is a lot different. And the way he's holding it almost like if you play guitar, like almost like a guitar strap. So it's a very interesting instrument. So the questions for this one are, does the Crwth remind you of any instruments you are familiar with? So maybe it reminds you of the violin or something like that. And if so, which one? so you can write down. Okay, yeah, ukulele, I think. Okay. Mhm. Okay, so what does the Chris remind you guys of?
Guitar.
Guitar? Yes. The fiddle, yep. The violin. Yep. Who likes the sound better than the VL? Yeah, I like this one better than the VL too, but they're both very unique. Okay. Oh. It started before I finished. Okay, the symphonia was a medieval keyboard instrument that resembled a small organ or early harpsichord. It was often used in church music, so it's kind of like a box-looking thing with like a crank. Yeah, it does. Okay, well, we're going to listen to it now. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I lost my paper. This one, which instrument does the symphonia sound like? Yes, I will agree with you. Annie? Mm-hmm. Yes, Asher? Okay. Yep. Can't take care of him right now. All right. Oh, I did it again. Let me pause. I keep doing that. I click it twice. Okay. The gem's horn is a wind instrument made from an animal horn or bone with finger holes along the side. It produces a mellow flute-like sound and was used in medieval music. So, what is unique about the gem's horn? What's something you think is unique about it?
It's made of bone.
Yeah, that's one thing. Now we're going to listen to it. You might think of something else. So he only played it for a short little bit there, but
it sounds good for a bone.
Yeah, it does. It sounds really nice. Okay. 14. There we go. Okay. This one is called the portative organ. What do you think that probably means? Portative. What does it remind you of? Yes.
Portable.
Portable, yep. It is a small portable pipe organ that was often used in religious ceremonies and processions during the medieval period. It was operated by a keyboard and bellows. So here we have a question. How could a portative organ be useful? And which instrument does it sound like the most today? So we're going to listen to this one. All right, listen. Shh. Okay. It's a very unique instrument. So you can see, like, it looks like a mini version of like a pipe organ, and yeah, the piano right there. It looks like so. It's a very neat instrument. I like it. Okay.
They said that it uses a bellows to play. So it means there's a. You ever seen like the old fireplaces that have this thing that you push together and it would push air out?
I never. Yeah.
Right?
Oh yes, I have.
That's like a bellow. So there's air coming through that makes the sound.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we don't really need fireplaces down here too much. Cooper.
cold. It's tambourine back.
Yeah, it does. And I think maybe there was like an accompaniment type of idea. So maybe someone else was playing the flute and they put that audio in the back there. It's kind of what it sounded like. So how could it be useful? How is it convenient?
For movies.
Yes, but right. Okay, Jared.
And it's good with the
All right, I'm gonna call on you one at a time. Yes. Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking. Since it's portable, if it's portable, that means you can take it with you. So instead of hauling around a giant pipe organ, it's pretty impossible. You can just take that with you and entertain people.
And it's better than a piano because you can't just leave. You don't have to have like a giant truck just to bring it over.
Yeah. So, yep. And which instrument does it sound like to you? Does it remind you of an instrument, Jared? A flute? Yeah. Yes. Yep. All right. And our last instrument that we're going over today, tambourine. Okay. This is common today too. When I was little, I had like a little toy tambourine. It's a handheld percussion instrument with jingling metal discs, sometimes called zills, and it was used in medieval music for rhythmic accompaniment, especially in dance and folk music. So today, a lot of times, when you're accompanying someone, you use a piano. That's very common. If you come to any of our recitals, a lot of times there will be a violin playing, and then there will be a piano accompaniment. So this was common back then. Obviously, they didn't have the piano we know today, so they would use a tambourine. So we're going to listen to this duet with a tambourine, and it looks like some sort of flute. If it loads. We'll give it a second here. There we go. Okay, I'm assuming it was probably maybe a little smaller than this, but around this size. It kind of looks like this, like as if this, if this had those little jingles, kind of looks similar. And see how he's tapping very gently with the tips of his fingers. So the question for this one was, do you think the tambourine adds beauty to a piece, or do you think it would sound better without it? Yes, Samuel?
What does that sound like?
Yeah, that sounds like a flute. Okay, out of all of these instruments, raise your hand if you had a favorite, and I will call on you, and I will ask you your favorite. Yes, what was your favorite? That one? You like that one? I like that one too. Jared? Which one? The portative organ? Yep, that's a really good one. Cooper? Sorry? Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, yep, I like that one. Annie? Yep. Those are good. Wait. Yes, that's yeah, Samuel, yes. Yes, the air goes through. Yep. Yes. Okay. What was your favorite, Frederick?
The lute.
The lute? I thought so.
Portative organ.
Yep. Okay, yes.
Portative organ.
Yep, that's definitely a favorite. Jimmy?
I'm portative organ.
Yep.
The lute is one of my favorite ones.
Yes.
It's one of my
Which one?
favorite.
The horn one, the gems horn? Yeah, that was a really neat one. Yes. Same one? Abigail, did you say the same one?
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Did I get everyone? Yes, you. Desham, yes. They're all very unique. And these aren't all of the instruments, obviously, but I just picked a couple to show you today. There are a lot of other ones.
Wow.
Okay, so we're going to go on to our next.
Class.
No, not our next class yet. Okay. Now, who played these instruments? So there were some people called minstrels and jongleurs. Not exactly sure how I would say that, but they were wandering musicians. Listen, they were wandering musicians and entertainers who played a significant role in the medieval society. They traveled from town to town, performing music, reciting poetry, and providing entertainment at feasts and gatherings. And this is a picture of maybe what it might have looked like. They might have traveled together, possibly, and stopped somewhere and played music for people. Yes.
I usually think of them as short like melodies.
Yeah, they played lots of different instruments. That looks like the modern guitar, but this might not be an accurate depiction. This is just a picture. Okay, they lived a nomadic life. What does nomadic mean?
I don't know.
Yes.
It means they don't stay in one place.
Yes, that's very true. A lot of times they don't really have a settling, like they just kind of wander around, just like what she said. They traveled from place to place. They were seeking opportunities to perform in exchange for food, lodging, and sometimes money. Okay, so it wasn't really a traditional job. All right, they were known for their versatility. They were not only musicians, but poets, storytellers, jugglers, and acrobats. Their performances included a wide range of skills and entertainment, making them well suited to a variety of audiences and venues. So if you're going to have a wedding or something like that, a lot of times you would have them come and they would play the music for you. Yep. All right, the tradition had a lasting impact on European culture. Their stories, songs, and legends often found their way into literature, influencing the development of medieval and Renaissance literature. So they would tell stories, they would write poetry and stuff, and that had an influence even after the medieval time period was over. And I'm sure you could find stuff from back then, even now. Okay, so what was going on during the medieval time period? Does anyone have like any historical event you know was going on during that time? Yes. Okay, probably, I'm not 100% sure, but so I have a few things listed. So this type of music was common at the same time as these historical events, and also like when there were like knights and all that type of stuff you can think of. The fall of Rome, the Magna Carta, that had to do with like the whole New World and stuff. Yep, the Black Death or the bubonic plague, the Crusades, the Viking Age, so you had these Vikings going around and plundering things. And the 100 Years' War, which was a 100-year war.
Wow.
Yes.
Was it a war between England and France? France? Yes.
Probably, not 100% sure. Jared?
Was it? It was actually a war.
Probably around that area. I'm not 100% sure, but okay.
It actually was proven to be the war with England and France.
Okay. How might have music affected the average person back then? So you can probably think to yourself, how music affects you right now. You might, if you go to church, you probably will hear it at church. If you go to an event, you might hear music at an event. Yes, Jimmy? You have something to say? We'll do food after you go to the other area. Okay, so this is some examples of how music would have affected the people back then in their daily work. So music often accompanied various types of work, particularly in agricultural settings. Field workers, for example, might sing work songs to maintain a steady rhythm while planting, harvesting, or tending to livestock. These songs also served as a form of entertainment and camaraderie during labor. So that actually sounds like, I didn't know they did this, but while they're working in the fields, they might be singing a song to kind of keep themselves paced, which is, I think, a very good idea. Yes. Okay, music was an essential element of feasts and celebrations, as we talked about. Festivals, weddings, and banquets were accompanied by lively music, dancing, and merriment. Different musical instruments, such as harps, lutes, and viols, which we learned about lutes and viols, and you guys know what harps are, were used to create festive atmospheres. And this is just kind of a depiction of what that might have looked like. Okay, music was sometimes believed to have therapeutic qualities. It was used in medieval medical practices, as physicians and healers believed that certain melodies and rhythms could promote healing and well-being. So I don't know how long, like, you don't normally go to the doctor and they just like play a song, and that's not really how it works. But back then they were experimenting a lot of different things. And
so what do we know about music? Can it make us happy and sad?
Yeah, it gives you the feelings of happy stuff.
Yes.
Sure can.
And it can make you feel better. Song that's way rockier and rock.
5 minutes. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes. What were you gonna say? Yeah, music is used for a lot of things. It can be used to calm you down, to get people excited. You might hear like during a game, there's like exciting, fast music. Okay, and then the people who made the instruments were called craftsmen. They lived in medieval towns and villages, and they made instruments like lutes, viols, and harps. And that was a skilled trade back then. So what is he making right there? Did we look at that?
The thing with the
We talked about it today, Jared. Nope.
Sham.
No, not the sham. Yes. The hurdy-gurdy. Yes, that's a hurdy-gurdy he's making. Obviously, this is not a picture from back then, but it's kind of what it might have looked like. Okay. Music also accompanied various rituals and ceremonies, and each type of ceremony had its own musical traditions and compositions. So I think this is possibly a wedding, it looks like. Nowadays, normally the lady wears a wedding dress. Like traditionally, it's white, and the man is dressed up nicely, but it looks like it was a little bit different back then. Yes.
What time are we gonna get the food?
We will get the food when we get the food. I'm not exactly 100% sure. Okay. Listen. Medieval music spanning the 5th to the 15th century, so each century is 100 years, featured unique instruments like lutes and viols. Minstrels and troubadours entertained, and music was a part of daily life. So that's kind of like a summary of what we learned today.
You said centuries, 100 years?
A century is 100 years, yes. Yep. Okay. So, who learned something new today? I learned something new. Creating this, I learned about all these cool instruments. I heard them for the first time. Good. I'm glad you guys learned something new.